welcome. Yeah. It is, it's Monday. Yahoo. Middle of the summer. It's getting close. It's getting close to September. Every day. Yeah. Welcome to Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by Blackwidow Bows. I'm Rob Patudo. And pretty crazy episode this week. So I think I go into it in the episode, so I won't rehash it here. But an old friend of mine that I met years and years ago here, you know, just kind of a loose friendship. We a lot of the same passions, you know, in hunting and bow hunting in same areas here, and we just we just run into each other once or twice a year at 3D shoots, and so. Geez, I hadn't talked to him in a few years. And I was thinking, man, I know a guy that kills big mountain whitetails right here in Idaho. And I would love to talk to him. Again, selfishly, I would like to talk to him about mountain whitetails. I think it'd be a great episode. So I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, dude, what's happening? What do you think? He's like, heck yeah, I'll do that. So in the weeks leading up to recording, I don't know. I don't know if I just came across it. I searched his name for something, and lo and behold, he kind of got famous since the last time I seen him, and it just struck me as funny. But I came across his name, Whitetail Addictions TV, and I'm like, what the heck? So I kind of look into that. That's part of Lonewolf Custom Gear. And so I messaged him. I'm like, dude, hey, did you get famous? And he's like, oh man, I've worked with Lonewolf Custom Gear. He's like, man, I love it. It's an all-American company. I've worked with them for years. I'm like, really? No kidding. And I just thought he was just killing bucks. So yeah, I get to talking to him. He's working with Buckfever Synthetics and hardcore e-cycles. I don't know. The guy's like super involved now. And I'm like, man, I didn't call you because I thought you were famous. I called you because you kill big whitetails in Idaho every year. So, yep, super funny. But anyways, I really had a good time talking to him. Seriously, man. And if you look this guy up, Mountain Man, what is it? MTN Man _33 on Instagram, or Troy Pottenger on Facebook. Yeah, we don't live 100 miles apart. And for 20 plus years, 25 years, 30 years, the guy's been killing magnum whitetails right here in the mountains of Idaho. So full of knowledge. Really enjoyed talking to him. We're actually scheming on some other stuff. Now, he is not a stickbow guy. We were talking in the beginning. He's dying to get into stickbow. This was, for me, it was selfish. It's all about deer behavior and trying to figure them out in the mountains. So I had a blast. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, and I'll apologize. We do get off on a rant a bit on Idaho, and I got to quit doing that because I tend to do that. Anyways, man, yeah, I appreciate you tuning in. I think you guys will enjoy it, and big shout out to the sponsors, Kifaru International, Selway Archery, the Footed Shaft, and of course, Blackwidow Bows. Get fired up. September's coming. Get off the couch. Roger out. Yeah. So were you driving somewhere?
Well, I'm out scouting and I just pulled over.
Hey, you sure this is a good time?
Hell yeah.
All right. Perfect.
I'm on my phone and I'm in my element. What a better time to talk about deer.
This is we're getting a lot of feedback though.
Let me try this. Is this better?
I think so. Pretty sure.
I'm moving the phone around to a better spot in the rig. Is that better?
That is right there. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to leave it right there. I won't touch it.
Perfect. You running solo? You got the kid with you?
Well, the kid is now 6'2", 180, so he's a horse.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
We're not recording yet, right?
Well, we are, but I do a lot of editing.
Okay, good. Well, Rob, I want to make sure I don't cross the line, so I'll be careful about that. I thought we were off the record right now.
Oh, no, you're good, man. Do you know who Aaron Schneider is?
Schneider rings a bell. That name rings a bell. Tell me.
Aaron Schneider, he's a CEO of Kifaru. He used to be with Gritty Bowman. Now he does Kifaru Cast and stuff. Anyways, he's pretty much a co-host here, and he drops the F-bomb like it's hot. So
Is he there? Is Aaron there right now?
No, actually, he's down with Joe Rogan doing a podcast with Joe Rogan today. He's kind of a big deal.
I was going to say he's a big deal if he's with Joe, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, nothing personal. I don't know if I know him or not, but I'll bet I've seen his name and ran across him. I'm sure if he's out there that big.
Oh yeah. No, he's yeah. Yep. So anyways, dude, this is super funny, man. This is like really, really cool. Cause I've done podcasts, with, I've been doing it for over 2 years now, and I get whitetail guys on here. Like I'm super weak at whitetails. And so I get whitetail guys on here, and they're always about Midwest. So I'm thinking, dang, I got to get somebody with mountain whitetail experience. And so I thought, oh man, I got to look up Troy. So I get a hold of you. And then like 3 days later, I'm doing a little research. Your name keeps popping. I'm like, did you get famous?
I'll tell you what, Rob, I'm pretty busy in the whitetail world.
That's cool, man. That is super cool. Cause I was just like, oh yeah, that guy kills, he's been doing it for decades. He kills awesome bucks. And pretty soon I'm like, hey, wait a minute. That's his face there. That's his name there. He's a big deal. That's awesome, dude. You deserve it, man. You deserve it.
Oh, it's my favorite thing to do in the world, and that's what I put all my free time into. I mean, I don't play softball, and I don't go boating, and I don't do this, and I don't do that because I devoted my life to whitetails when I was in my 20s.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably when we met, right?
I think we met in my early 30s.
So
I was really into them, Rob, even when I was 12 years old. I mean, whitetails were everything to me from day one when I first started hunting.
So just to get started, set a little foundation here. You're from St. Mary's, Idaho, is that right? Or Potlatch?
I grew up just south of St. Mary's, went to St. Mary's High School, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so you grew up, Chase, that's whitetail country, and nobody really cared about whitetail. Is that right back then?
No, when we say cared, nobody, they were always a third class citizen to mule deer and elk when I was growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that was elk country down there. I mean, shoot.
Yeah. And we had elk. We had great muleys up high. We still do. I mean, you're north of me, but our country all kind of holds the same stuff if you get at the right elevations.
Oh yeah. 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 It's funny. I don't want to talk units, right? So we're not going to mention units. We're not going to mention, I don't get specific, and I'm sure you don't either, but, over where I used to elk hunt, some friends, they've had trail cameras out for years, and summertime and stuff. And they've showed me pictures of scary big mule deer, a lot of non-typical stuff, a lot of junk, but you don't really hunt them because that country's kind of closed off up there, by the beginning of November, maybe second week in November, and they just don't get hunted. You might bump into some, but there's some big, scary deer up there.
Yeah, I've got some mule deer on camera that guys would completely flip over if they saw what I have on camera.
Yeah, and it's not like it's the high country. You're not glassing them. I mean, it's thick, nasty dog hair, crappy, bump into them type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't glass them where I'm at because there's a sea of timber for 100 miles.
We just did a podcast, me and a guy from Alaska, about bear baiting, kind of explaining why you bear bait. And I'm like, man, if you see 40 yards, it's because you're in a big clearing.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny too, Rob, is our country that we live in, that you and I both hunt in. There's a lot of misnomers out there about the West when it comes to our country.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Our country has been the country we hunt in, I've been on a lot of podcasts, and I've talked to the elk guys, the elk shape guys, and dudes that are really into elk and all that. And like they tell me, the hardest, most difficult, most annoying, thickest, tangled, nastiest, brushiest, steepest country in the world is northern Idaho.
Yeah. You know, I used to say non-residents came here one time. They buy a tag. They're going to hunt out west, and they come out here and like, crap, man, this sucks.
Yeah, they can't see 50 feet past their face.
You know, 4 years ago, I had this young guy started work over here, and he grew up around Mount St. Helens, and he's a tough kid. He's a tough kid, and we went. I said, "Yeah, I'll take you out. Maybe I'll try bugling for you." And so we parked the truck. We bail. You know, we get on top of this ridge, and this is country that I hunt all the time, or used to. And we're standing there in the morning, and he's just staring down the hill, and he's looking at it, and he looks at me, he says, "Man, this is effing man country." I was like, "That's right." You know, the kid was like 25 years younger than me. I'm like, "Yeah, that's right, buddy."
Well, and you know, there is a lot of truth to that. This country, you know, I grew up as a little kid in Salmon River down at Riggins,
mm-hmm.
and moved up to just south of St. Mary's outside of Santa when I was 10 or 11. I think it was one of those 2 summers. I think it was 11. But anyway, this country, Salmon River, I don't know if you've ever been down there, Rob, but it's steep and it's nasty and it's full of rattlesnakes. You get into that kind of country that goes from 1,500 feet elevation and go all the way to the top of He Devil at, 12,000 or 11,000.
Yeah.
That kind of country. And then you move up into this and you jump up. You don't quite climb that high, but you add all the brush and all the timber to it, and you still have those steep climbs. I agree. If you can grow up in this country and traverse it, hunt it, be successful in it, handle the weather that we take on, just the weather alone.
Yeah.
It is man country. And, I grew up logging. I grew up logging with my father in this country. This is logging country too.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. Oh, I just saying, I agree with you. This truly is mountain man country.
Yeah. I had John Barklow on from Sitka, and we were talking about rain gear, and he mentioned head pressure, the weight of the water. And it kind of makes sense when we push through this huckleberry brush or snow brush, I don't know, there's all kinds of different stuff. You go 40 yards and that water's pushing against you. Man, rain gear fails fast around here.
It does. If you can traverse this country in heavy rainstorms or right after one and not get wet, show me the gear that can do that.
Yeah. When I left salmon, I used to guide the Frank Church. That's kind of where I cut my teeth. That is where I cut my teeth.
Okay.
Elk hunting. And, you can see finger ridges, you can see stuff.
Yep.
And I got up here, man, that first season, the second season, I was totally intimidated because you were just, a lot of times you're just dead reckoning. I mean, that was before GPS, right?
Right. Rob, it's funny you bring up the Frank Church. You and I have some similar roots. I grew up Warren Creek, up the Big Salmon in the Frank Church, shed hunting and running that country for antlers and mule deer and elk when I was real young. And it was before I was able to shoot anything, but my grandfather out of Riggins had a pack string.
Oh, yeah.
And we used to ride into Wind River. You probably know some of that country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Warren Creek out of McCall.
Yeah, I was on the other end. I came in from the other end on the Bitterroot end. Bitterroot side.
Okay, but it's the same kind of country. I totally get what you're talking about. You could actually sit on a ridge there and glass 1,000 yards away and watch bulls down in that country.
Oh yeah. Oh heck yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have family? I'm sure you do. You have family down around Riggins that has a meat cutting shop?
Yeah, I've got, I grew up down there till I was 10 or 11, then moved up to St. Mary's because of the logging industry. My dad was a logger. But I've got, my cousin has Pottenger's Market at Rapid River, and they cut all the wild game. And then my brother has Idaho's Big River Outfitters right out of Riggins.
Yeah, and maybe that's the sign, but I drive by a sign there every time. I'm like, Troy's got to be related to them. Then I ought to introduce you for crying out loud. We got Troy Pottenger on here.
Hey, that's fine. We can come around the back door on that. That's no biggie. But yeah, my brother's got a hell of a jet boat sturgeon salmon fishing business, and then my cousin Russell has the meat cutting business, and those guys live like 5 miles from each other down there.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yep.
You know, I love reminiscing, but I want to say that you and I ran into each other around the late 90s or early 2000s. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think it was the late 90s. Yep.
Okay. And I was representative for the Idaho State Bowhunters, and I met you at archery shoots, and I was shooting Stickbow, and you and your brother, I think. Would you have been running with your brother?
Maybe back then, and I know we ran into each other at those. And we also ran into each other at like the bighorn shows and all the, all the smaller deer shows. We would always see each other at too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And up here in Bonner County, you used to go to the bighorn show up here, right? Gun and horn show.
I came to it every year. I wanted to look and see what big whitetails were coming out of that country.
We got a lot to talk to. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but so. I had met you and I was running with a guy named Dan Davis at the time, and I was really into elk. Ran into you guys. You guys were compound shooters. I was shooting Stickbow, and we've talked a lot because I was always trying to get you to join the Idaho State Bowhunters, and you're like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I tried to sell you hard, but
I did. I even got it. I have a nice Stickbow. I don't know if you know that.
No.
I've got I've got two of Don Urout's bows out of St. Mary's.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, and I actually, what have I shot? I've shot one elk with it, and just a spike up here. The truth is, I absolutely love the Stickbow.
Cool.
But the also brutal truth is, I've raised two boys, and I'm very honest with myself about Stickbow. I actually think it's incredible, and I'm going to hunt with Stickbow a ton when I retire. I really believe it's one of those tools that if you're going to hunt with it, you better put a ton of time into practice it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when you talk to me about my whitetails, you'll see that I spend an exorbitant amount of time scouting and doing my whitetail setups. And I try to be honest about the whole Stickbow thing. I'm trying to kill some of the biggest whitetails in the state every year with a bow and arrow.
You do a really good job.
And I literally, and I'll say this to all your listeners, I'm not good enough and or dedicated enough yet with my beautiful Stickbow that I have to justify putting an arrow at one of my big deer. I respect them too much.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
But what I am going to do, Rob, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm going to retire in 5 years from teaching, and I log and I have all kinds of other irons in the fire in the hunting industry. So I'm a very busy guy. But as soon as I get that time, I'm gonna, God willing, I'm gonna put a lot more effort into hunting these deer with my Don Urout takedown longbow. It's beautiful, and you know who Don is, probably out of St. Mary's.
I know the name. I don't know that I know the face, but I know the name.
I've got to show you his bows. They're unreal. They're cool. Don built me one, and the truth is, as soon as I get a little more time and can be honest, justify being better at it to where I know I can make that perfect shot every time, because I'm very disciplined about my shooting. I don't like wounding animals.
No, it shows in your videos, man. It shows in your videos.
Well, and that's just a straightforward, honest, brutal answer. I absolutely love the Stickbow, but I'm not good enough yet. And when I get proficient and really feel good about it, I'm going to hunt with them a lot more and off the ground too.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding.
Yeah.
So to finish off, you and I ran into each other quite a bit. We just ran in different circles. I mean, you were dedicated to your whitetails. I was dedicated to elk, and 3D kind of went by the wayside. It got super competitive, and I don't think that's why you were there, and that's not why I was there. And
No, I honestly I was just there for a good time, and it got so goofy. I thought I thought there was a little too much drama in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I got too, Rob, I got too serious with my deer too. I only had so much time in a day to compete. And if I'm going to go do anything, I want to be really good at it. So I kind of set aside some stuff so that I could really dive into the deer when I was in my 20s and early 30s.
Now, what I was hoping to do is get you to walk me through, what a year looks like, starting in January, how you approach it, right through it. And I mean, we don't have 6 hours, so I'm not looking but just hit the highlights. But before we get going now, I said in the beginning that, I just looking up an old friend and you agreed to do this, but then I started looking, I'm seeing your name pop up in different places. Now, who are you working with? Who do you rep for? What do you got going on?
I got a lot going on. I feel truly blessed, fortunate to where I'm at now. 25 years ago almost, I jumped on board with Buckfever Synthetics because Idaho's a non-baiting state, and I really dove into scrape hunting. I even did it before I got hooked up with the synthetic urine and forehead gland company out of Michigan. But anyway, all that to say, I hooked up with Buckfever Synthetics over 2 decades ago and have become one of their main ambassadors. And I feel like, as far as their public land hunter and their whitetail guy out west, I'm their guy. I'm a scrape hunter hardcore, and I've done extremely detailed podcasts across the country about scrapes. I have a biology and kinesiology degree. So my whole approach to whitetails is from a scientific and very, logical standpoint. Don't believe in luck, any of that. I really dive into the science of a deer and his biology and attack him that way. I'm also an old football player, so everything I do is a game plan and laid out just like I learned through the years of high school and college football. So I have a pretty set system that continues to evolve. But as far as right now, I'm with Whitetail Addictions TV. I've been with the DeQuisto family now for 6 or 7 years, I think it is. And all of my hunts and my son's hunts, we film. And the good stuff that we get on footage goes on their Lonewolf Custom Gear YouTube page. And you can watch Ty and I hunt these Eastern Washington, Western Montana, North Idaho bucks. I think I have 3 or 4 episodes now with them. They just released my son's, Tyson and I's latest episode 2 weeks ago. So it's Lonewolf Custom Gear YouTube page, Whitetail Addictions TV, the DeQuisto family, all the Lone Wolf tree stands. You've heard of all of that. I got hooked up with them decades ago as far as using their product, their tree stand, and then got in with their team and became one of their pro staff. And now I'm one of the main guys on their staff as far as a solo cam filmer and hunter. And I'm one of their guys. It's their, a solely pretty much a do-it-yourself. Well, they're all do-it-yourself, but I'm a public land guy for them. And great family, great people. We have about 25 guys on the staff now that video and hunt for them. So yeah, Whitetail Addiction's a big part of my life. Buckfever Synthetics, and then I've got an e-cycle out there that my buddy Steve Pinkston built that I helped with that, and I represent those e-cycles. And yeah, I really have a lot going on. Social media is good. Do a lot of podcasts, and I've written articles now for North American Whitetail Magazine, Northwest Hunter a ton. There's been a lot of local stuff I've done over the years, and then of course I always do the Big Horn Show. I have my Buckfever Synthetics and Lone Wolf Custom Gear products at that show every year. So yeah, just a lot going on with whitetails.
Yeah, and I thought I was just calling an old friend. I'm surprised you even answered my call. That's funny.
Rob, that's not. The thing is it's really important to say this. I'm just me. I've never changed. The only thing that I think's different about me is I'm more in love with hunting whitetails now than I was when I thought I couldn't love it anymore. I'm 50 years old this year, and I'm more enamored by them now than I've ever been.
Well, dude, seriously, when we first met and, we'd shoot the shit and talk on the phone, run into each other. your intensity for whitetail was obvious then. I mean, we're not talking like pulling out cell phones. Like this is before you pull out a cell phone, you say, hey, look at these pictures. You're carrying around pictures. You're like showing me
Yeah.
bucks. And man, I'm telling, so my listening audience, a lot of guys are from back east, and maybe they're in tune to the YouTube channels and stuff, but I'll have some pictures. I'll get some photos from you. So I'm telling the listeners, this guy has killed magnum whitetails in and around the mountains of northern Idaho for decades. So yeah, super cool to have you here. I'm looking forward to picking your brain.
Well, Rob, I appreciate it. And these mountain bucks, this whole mountain buck topic is getting big now, because across the country, there's a lot of guys, even out in the South and the Northeast, that are hunting mountains too. Now, they may not be hunting quite as big of mountains as you and I hunt, but in the whitetail world, the whole mountain buck hunting is really getting big and it's trending. So I think the guys that are listening out there will give you some feedback and say, yeah, we definitely know, the Lonewolf brand and the Whitetail Addictions show. And yeah, I think you might even be surprised how many of your listeners they'll be real privy to this whole Whitetail Addictions team that I'm on, and
yeah,
no, I'd love to go through a year for you, kind of month by month, kind of how it works out here in the woods, in the big woods.
And I've got to just cover my base, because I've done a podcast once or twice with a guy named Nathan Killen. He's from West Virginia, and
Nathan just got on our staff at Whitetail Addictions.
Oh, well, there you go. And so I got to give him props, because he is a mountain whitetail guy. He does a great job.
Yep.
and very knowledgeable. I was just excited to get a Western guy. Yeah, Nathan's awesome, super good guy, and he'll rep that product. He's a really, really good guy. So
he is. He's a great guy, and we literally just put him on our team in the last month.
Oh, no kidding. Good for him. Good for you guys. That's awesome. Oh, I think he's a class act.
He really is. Nathan and I, it's funny you brought Nathan's name up. Nathan and I were literally texting this morning and yesterday about a couple of the setups that we have, and he's getting his Buckfever Synthetics from me now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a small world out there when you really get to talking about that whitetail. The elk world, the whitetail world, everybody kind of knows everybody.
Yeah. So, with all that said, if you want to start explaining in January or now, I'm just super interested in your approach.
That sounds good. Rob, I'll start at the first of the year. Let's start right after season. Of course, just so your listeners know, I've only bow hunted since 96 or 7.
Rookie.
So everything I'm killing in these mountains are bow kills. I hunt eastern Washington, northern Idaho, western Montana if I find a buck that I like and want to put in for the draw. That's how I hunt Montana. But anyway, all that to say, it always starts for me. The season in Idaho ends on the 24th of December.
Yeah.
And I always take Christmas Day at least off. And then, no, I'm not joking. And then a lot of times we're picking up or looking for sheds on the afternoon of Christmas. Because some of our big bucks will shed that early. A few of them will. Anyway, we dive into as much shed hunting that week. I'm a teacher, so I always have that week off after Christmas. And if I'm not in the Midwest hunting Ohio bucks or Iowa or Oklahoma, if I don't go out on a trip, which I've actually been doing the last 5 or 6 years. Anyway, I roll through that week, but January 1st, as soon as I get back from my out-of-state trip, it's in the woods, pounding as much ground as we can until the big snow hits. And you know how it works up here.
Oh, yeah.
About the second week of January, we usually get blasted, and then we get covered up in 2 and 3 and 4 feet of snow in the areas I want to look. So then I jump on the migration trail of the deer and lower elevations and shed hunt all of that, and just really try to beat the heck out of the country on feet to pick up sheds, find evidence of bucks that made it, and work on that all the way through February. And then as the snow starts to come off, I just meticulously move around more into the north and higher elevations, and I keep picking up and looking for sheds that have been buried in the snow. And you know, I'm picking all the sign out, all the trails and the rubs, and I'm a very intense scrape hunter, so I'm always looking for community scrapes, and those are like gold mines in the mountains compared to any other type of scrape. So I spend that whole winter and spring playing that game and kind of following the path of the snow melt. And then when I get into, I'd say March and April are my big shed months, because most of the snow is off where I want to find sheds. And we hit that really hard, and I'm scouting like crazy when I'm shed hunting. I'm getting, you know, 3 things done at once. The whole inception of scouting and on maps is just, I love it, because now I get to add all that into my phone. And I've, you know, spent 35 years learning, you know, scouting before I had scouting maps. So all that just ties together, and I'm already picking out new areas I want to set up and look for deer. I call it prospecting, and I'll look for new bucks to hunt. And then by about May, I transition from the whole scouting shed hunting to I start setting stuff up and setting up mock scrapes in May. And I build all of my setups May, June, and July. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Really?
I'm building up. So I'm setting all of my mock scrapes up. I build big, authentic, community-looking scrapes, and I get my bucks to hunt me. And I use this synthetic urine and synthetic forehead gland to make bucks and does think that I'm a new deer in the area. And I introduce these big scrapes, and I run 30-second video on all of them. So I have tons of video intelligence to just show and prove what these deer are doing, when most people don't even realize they're working a scrape. And I'm not talking about digging in the dirt and urinating in it, but year-round whitetails address the licking branch.
Really?
And that's how they communicate through the entire year.
Wow.
So whitetails always check licking branches through the entire year. I run cameras year-round in all my spots, never pull them. I just keep changing out the batteries and putting new SD cards in. Every one of my setups has a picture camera and a video camera on it, and sometimes 2 picture cameras and 1 video camera.
Wow.
So I'm just gathering as much information as I can to give me every tidbit of information about every individual deer on my camera, bucks and does both. So then I categorize all those animals. I watch them grow up on my scrapes. I don't even chase a buck anymore unless he's 5 years old. I don't even hunt him. And I've had some tremendous 4.5-year-olds, 160 class deer that I don't hunt till they're 5. And that's just kind of where I'm at now. And every year I'm trying to hunt in every state that I have a tag for that I can scout, which is always northern Idaho and eastern Washington. I'm always after targeting that 170, 180 class whitetail that I can find. And some years I don't always find a 170, but I usually can find one. And if he's got to be 5 years older, I leave him alone. I actually left a deer alone last year that was in the 170s, but he was only 4.5.
You're kidding me. How are you aging?
How do I age them? It's pretty simple when you have them grow up on your scrapes.
Okay.
You have them. Whitetail bucks disperse when they're 1.5. Their mothers kick them out. They do not want them near them for breeding. So when a buck's 1.5, he gets kicked off his mom. He gets sent away. When he's 2.5, he settles into an area in the mountains. And when he's 2.5 years old, he starts addressing the scrapes that I have in there. And then I watch him every year grow up on my scrapes. I have him come in under my stand. I see him 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year at my tree stands. And as he gets older, he gets a little more careful. And as long as I don't screw it up, I still see him in the daylight every year. So I'm getting to literally know these deer like you would know your dog. And I name them all. I know all my does. They all have a certain face, a certain body type. I mean, when you spend as much time with the deer as I do and have as much video camera evidence, not just pictures, it actually becomes really easy to differentiate all of them.
So you're able to differentiate does. I mean, that's mind blowing to me.
All of my does look completely different to me, and it's because I spend so much time with those deer. And trail cameras have really helped me because I run 30-second videos on every site, every scrape. And now that I do have the cameras and the video evidence, guys, all they got to do is look up Troy Pottenger YouTube. And I don't put everything on there. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to show my full hand, but there's probably 100 or up to 200 videos of does and bucks hitting my scrapes from April till January. And in the winter, the snow, and the reason they're not in there from late January to April is because there's 4 feet of snow in there, in most of my spots. So they leave. In my lower elevation spots, they stay year round. So yeah, I just literally living with the deer and over probably the last 2 decades, I've really tried just to become another whitetail with them. That's why I use that synthetic scent. I'm basically introducing a new buck to all the herds, and I introduce does too. So I'm introducing different deer into these scrapes, and then the deer seek me out and want to find me, and they want to locate me and find me and see me in the daylight. And that's what ends up happening. That's why I say the deer hunt me.
So now, May, June, July, you're working these scrapes. You're building them. Are you afraid of busting deer out of there? What are you doing for scents? I mean, or are you not worried about it that time of year?
Well, I am worried about it. I treat every scrape every time I go into it like I'm hunting it. And when you're running almost 100 trail cameras and you're running 30 to 40 different scrape sites, you only get to each one on I have a rule once a month. 1 time a month rule. Do I intrude, check the camera, freshen the scrape? So I'm only in there 1 time a month, but I have so many of them and I'm spread out over, when I do my big loop, I just came back from a 5-day loop. I sleep in my pickup 5 days straight, may get to a friend's house one night and get a shower, but I love just living out in the woods and being in my truck. I am a teacher, so I do have my summers off. I do work also, but I take off 5 and 6 day blocks of time so that I can go do what I call my big camera check. I touch up those scrapes. If I'm building a new scrape, which is called a mock scrape, then I put a lot more scent into it. And I might be there for 45 minutes to an hour. If I'm just over marking existing, amazing, decade-old, 2, 3, 4 decade-old community scrapes that I've found, I can slide in, pull the card, touch up the scrape, and be out of there in 5 minutes. So I'm really not intruding like you think I would be. I've got this down to I'm real efficient, and I got it down to a science to where I really do leave my big deer alone, and I let my scrapes do the work for me, and I let the deer take it over. And my several decade-old community scrapes that have been hit by every deer in the drainage for decades, they teach each other where that scrape is, and all I am is another deer that's at that scrape. In other words, they smell my forehead scent, they smell my urine in the scrape, they smell my forehead scent on the rubs. So they just think I'm that ghost buck that they can never find. They can't see me, but I'm there, and they smell me. So they end up coming looking for me more in the daylight. And that's why my bow stands are set at 20 yards at those scrapes. And I hunt high, and, when I'm killing these old mountain whitetails, in the last decade, they've all been older than 5 years old up to 11 years old. And I have had biologists age my old ones.
11?
I've got one deer that was 11. He had the biologist said he was 10 or 11, and he couldn't tell the difference because his teeth were below his gums. And I had that deer on camera for 6 years.
Wow. And obviously, certainly he was downhill at 11, right?
He was a 160 buck at one time, and when I killed him, he was in the high 130s. Yeah. He stayed really wide. He stayed really wide, 21 inches wide, but he just went downhill to where he wasn't as heavy. Tines weren't as long. he's truly one of the greatest trophies I've ever killed, to kill a deer that was, the biologist told me 10 or 11. And he said, and I have one that was 9 too, that was aged at 9 years old.
Holy smokes. I thought 6 was
then,
old.
Most of the bucks I'm hunting, Rob, seriously, and because I watch them grow up on my scrapes every year, I have pictures of them. Most of the bucks I target are 6.
Yeah. Wow.
And I don't, hey, and don't get me wrong, there's not a lot of them.
No. Okay. Yeah.
This is a huge endeavor to have 1 or 2 6 or 7 year olds a year, you know?
Now is that because, and I'm talking specifically Idaho, is that because of our insane rifle season?
It's so hard to get a buck 6 years old in Idaho.
Yeah. That's freaking rifle season's a joke.
It is a joke. I've hunted all over the country. We have the most liberal, ridiculous, kill 'em all deer rifle season it's just for revenue. It is.
Yeah.
Anybody can say what they want, but it's to sell tags.
I've mentioned before on this podcast, I've had a friend of mine who's a CO here in Idaho. I've had him on the podcast. We talk about the genetics we have, and you will remember the Bonner County Gun and Horn Show back in 2002, 4, 6, in that range. I mean, there would be rows of 130s and 140s and some 150s.
Yeah.
And every year there'd be some 160s, 180s. Somebody killed a 210-inch deer down the road from me. We have that capability, but they have absolutely pounded them to the point where I've seen 2 mature bucks in 3 years.
Rob, we don't have any age at all. And the problem is the Fish and Game opened it up to 2 tags in 2005. And when they opened it up to 2 tags, every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the world bought 2 tags and shot and filled their deer tags with, and they didn't care how old the buck was from that point forward. And another problem is when did the wolves start coming in heavy? About 05.
I'll go. Let me tell you my take on it. I'll go on my rant, and I've said this before. When we had good elk hunting, the mule deer people were really concerned about the decline of the mule deer. So the department, and rightfully so at the time, said, well, we'll open up deer season, whitetail, October 10th. So every elk hunter then has a deer tag in their pocket. So when they're up in the high country and they see a whitetail, they can shoot it, and thus relieving pressure. Yeah, thus relieving pressure off the mule deer. Well, all of that went away 10 years ago, but now we are stuck with this October, is it 5th or October 10th opener, and everybody's walking around with a tag in their pocket till they see a buck and just shooting a buck, and they don't care if it's a fork and horn or So
you literally just said exactly what I was trying to say. Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And that's the problem with our mentality up here is let's treat whitetails like a second-class citizen when we shouldn't. Our whitetails could be one of the biggest trophy draws in northern Idaho if they would allow for some age.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you would literally get more people spending more money in northern Idaho if they would just, hey, and I know because I hunt across the border where they have a 10-day long rifle season for whitetails. And let me tell you, the age class is 10 times better. Imagine that.
Well, we get a little sidetracked, and we'll keep going. We'll keep going a little bit. I met our new big game biologist last winter at a open house, and
so did I.
Yeah, so myself and another guy who's killed a lot of big whitetails with a bow, and I don't put myself in that category. I hunt them. I don't kill big whitetail, but my analogy or my what I told him was I drive prime whitetail country 30 miles from Sandpoint to the Montana border, and you should be scared to death of deer. Well, no more do deer scare me because there's none on the road, and I don't see roadkill from here to Montana. And it used to be, you used to see some big bucks get killed. I've got horns that I've whacked off big bucks in my shed.
Yep.
You don't see them anymore. And the other guy saying, hey, man, I run game cameras year round. I'm not getting pictures. And what do? Status quo. It's freaking irritating.
It is. And I'm the same guy down here running all the cameras and all the way up. You know, I run cameras all the way to the Canadian border. And it's the same everywhere in the Panhandle until whitetails become an important priority. I mean, we have some of the greatest genetics literally anywhere.
Agreed.
If we give our bucks age, we compete with anybody. I'm not joking.
I have.
We can grow 200-inch whitetails in Idaho if they give them some age.
I have photos. I'm gonna pull the years out of my hat. I think it's like 2002, 2003. I have photos of all the entries from the Gun and Horn Show here in town. Yep. And it's mind blowing. I got a 172 on the wall. I mean, if I can kill that, that means they were out there.
Yep. Rob, you and I are pretty close to the same age and have been through the same years and watched all this change. It really went downhill after 2005.
Yeah. Yep.
That's when they changed the dates and added 2 tags.
Yeah. And I've asked them to, okay, keep the 2 tags, right? We won't have that problem anymore because now everybody's coming to Idaho. Apparently it's the only state that has hunting. But, I asked them like, hey, if you want to keep the 2 tags, keep the 2 tags, but don't allow it to be used in the same zone, right? Because these non-residents are coming here and buying 2 tags and killing 2 mature bucks, Thanksgiving when all these bucks are running crazy. November 10 through 24 or something like that. They're setting up big camps and they're killing like 6 and 8 mature bucks out of these camps. Like,
yeah. And I don't even know if they're killing mature. They're probably killing 3-year-olds.
Well, yeah, that could be. I mean, those are big bucks up on the border up there, but we better get back on track.
Well, it's okay to bring that up a little bit. It's something that we do need to talk about. And I think all of us guys that have grown up and lived in these mountains our entire life, it's important to us because we want to see the quality for our generations to come. We want to see it get back to some quality and not just be, we really don't, I don't think any of us want to see Northern Idaho just be the place where you sell all the over-the-counter tags to anyone and who cares about what gets killed. That's not a good attitude. That's not sending the right message for game management.
No, that's a really good point. When the wolves were descending upon us like a plague up here in Northern Idaho, I conveyed my frustration to some of the department, or it was actually some non-hunters. And I said, you look back at the last 30 years, 40 years of sportsmen in this country and in the West, all the West, we dedicated so much of our own time and money enhancing habitat and, really like supporting the Elk Foundation, the Mule Deer Foundation. I mean, that was what we did because we loved it. We were giving back. And if you don't think there's animosity when all of a sudden you have this alpha, this ultimate predator come in with zero management and come and just smoke your life's work. You got to understand. We've got some, we've got some skin in the game here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the truth is, as soon as it started hurting the pocketbooks of who, then they decided, we got to scramble now after we totally screwed everything up. And now we got to open up all out season on them, which the sportsmen saw that coming way ahead of time. And we got told a story for a long time until it started costing them in the pocketbook, and then they changed. And, it's going to take decades to get it back. And the whitetails will never get back to what you and I knew in the 80s and 90s, Rob, until they make some management changes for quality and for a better age structure. It'll never change.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me pull another year out of my hat, like 2000, somewhere around 2000, when the mule deer were starting to hurt, up in this area. Sportsmen tried to close the mule deer doe to harvest. No, we used to be able to shoot does, and we said, hey, close the does. We fought Yep. All that year with the department. They did not want to close it. And it was until Nancy Hadley, our game commissioner, stood up at a meeting, sitting right behind me, stood up in the meeting and said, these sportsmen want it closed. You will close it. We sat down with the Jim Hayden at the time, and I forget the area supervisor, and we ended up closing it. And then like 6-7 years later, they took credit for it because everybody was seeing mule deer.
Yeah, and it was, if you guys wouldn't have fought for that, nothing would have happened.
No.
We fought with them like crazy in St. Mary's last year. They literally packed their stuff and left, and the Court Kill guy wouldn't even talk to us, and he probably doesn't want to hear this, but the truth is we have so many concerned citizens down here in the Coeur d'Alene, St. Mary's area too, just like you guys. We all see the writing on the wall with what's going on here, and everybody I talk to, and I'm not just saying this because I like big deer, everybody I talk to cares about quality for the future and not just decimation.
Yeah. Well, they what do they call it? There was a word for it.
Opportunity.
Yes. Thank you. Yep. Idaho's an opportunity state.
No, Northern Idaho is the opportunity child. Yeah. If you go to the southern part of the state gets all kinds of great regulations and trophy hunts.
I'm getting off on a rail now. I have zero. I don't know. I don't know if he's still the regional supervisor, but I have zero respect for our regional supervisor. And I was sitting in a wolf meeting. It was kind of a high level meeting. We had all the big wigs from Boise were up. It was like 17, 20 people sitting in a big circle. And I said, there's no reason why we're not leg hole trapping wolves starting October 5th or October 1st in this country. And he looks at me, this knucklehead. And I say that with the zero respect. This knucklehead looks at me and says, we have to worry about berry pickers that time of year. And I said, berry pickers in October, berry pickers? And he looked at me and he says, yes. And I looked at his boss and I said, really? All right. Well, how long you lived here? Freaking
how many berries are hanging out in October?
Oh, dude, it was all I could do not to just get up and walk out.
I'll finish with this. We'll get back to what we're supposed to be yakking about. But the problem is, Rob, and you know this, they're all appointed. They're not elected.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to elect the guys that's up here. It needs to be the people up here that care about our game, wild game up here. It needs to be an elected official, not an appointed official from the governor.
100%. And I'll say that, let me walk it back a little bit. I have nothing but respect for our COs up here, our conservation officers. Every one of them that I know personally are great guys, and they're on the same page with you and I.
Yep. And I'm not talking about those guys. I'm just talking about the people making the decisions at the top.
And I can't say with certainty, but I have heard the new director speak a couple times, and it's been encouraging. The director of the fishing game. So there's some light at the end of it. Yeah.
I would love for them to sit down with us sportsmen that, us guys that have been in it forever and that truly spend thousands of dollars a year in our communities just to go hunt a deer or an elk. Yeah. We're the ones forking out our hard-earned money. We spend it in every small town in northern Idaho. I eat at the restaurants on purpose. I fill up. I make sure that I'm buying local, and that's what's driving our little communities. It's not, I'm buying the most expensive package I can every year for Idaho license and tags, and I'd be glad to give extra money if we were just management quality, had a little more quality management based thinking up here, instead of just sell as many tags as you can so that you can create revenue.
That meeting, that specific meeting I'm talking about, when the regional supervisor told me that he was concerned about berry pickers in October, that meeting, that I wasn't the only hothead in that meeting. That meeting got a little heated. When it was over, the next day I called our senator who was in attendance, And I called her and I said, hey, I want you to know that the reason that 5 or 6 of us were so passionate is because
Right.
we have been here for the last 25 years. We know
Yes.
what the relationship used to be. It was
Yes.
it was the department and the sportsman working together. It is not.
Together. Yes.
Yep. It is not that at this time. That
You
that is
nailed it, Robbie.
yeah.
It was different. It was different 15 years ago.
Yep.
20 years ago, it was different. It's all changed. And I agree with you. And we're the same way down in the St. Mary's area. We had a passionate, intense meeting, and none of us were there to cause trouble. We were there to be heard, and they didn't want to hear us, and we made them listen.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't want to hear it, but they stayed and had to hear us. And then everything changed. Then then what ended up happening is they're just not coming back. Then they're going to call you some names, and they're going to try to point fingers at you. And it would say, we were totally civil. We just asked excellent questions and nobody could answer them.
No, it's important. It's important the way that our state operates. And it's important that the politicians know, it's not that I have faith in them. It's important that, the story is that the sportsmen care. I mean, we are vested in this, and
it's our home. It's what we've lived and grown in. And we care, we care and are more passionate about our country, our area up here by far, just based on, you can see how much money and time and effort we put into giving back. I'd be glad to sit and show people my receipts every year, what I spend in North Idaho.
Yeah.
And I'm not a rich guy. I'm a school teacher, but I'll tell you what, every last extra penny I make in other endeavors goes towards wildlife and or communities, businesses.
When I do a podcast on specifically on Idaho, I'm giving you a call.
We better stop. You're going to have to edit half of this out just because we're talking too much.
Oh no, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So you got scrapes made. You got community scrapes made. You got your deer kind of cataloged.
Exactly. And I'm just, what I'm doing is conditioning my big whitetails and I'm positioning myself in a lot of areas that pretty hard to get to. Big deer feel safe in it, heavy security cover. You're never going to find me out in an open clear cut or on an open hillside or down in a meadow. I always, everything I base my whitetail hunting on is the wind, because a big buck lives by his nose all day long, 24/7, 365 days a year, because of the alpha predators. It's not just because of the humans. It's because of the lions, the wolves, the grizzlies, the black bear, the coyotes, the lynx. I've had a lynx at my tree stand before,
Really?
Chasing a whitetail buck.
Really?
I have video footage of a lynx putting the sneak on a whitetail buck that's coming by my stand.
That's cool,
I have
man.
some incredible footage. I have wolf footage that I'm sure everybody'd like to get a hold of or don't want to see, but some people don't want to see it out there. But that's one thing I love about cameras. Cameras never lie. So I like to film all of my hunts. I film everything I can, get it on footage. My old football coaches used to say, footage never lies. So trail cameras, video, you can't argue with it. And, I started really collecting a ton of footage as soon as trail cameras came out. And then I went to video, and that stuff, that video just doesn't lie about what's going on out there. It really, it just shows you. It's brutal sometimes.
Yeah. Man, a lynx, that's pretty cool.
I've had them all on camera, and I, like I said, I'm not going to post everything and share everything. There's some stuff I keep to myself, but I've had some interesting people get a hold of me and want to get a hold of my wolf videos. Back in the day, that was pretty interesting. I was like, no, I think I'll keep it to myself. But anyway, it's a year-round endeavor for me. Rob, there's just nothing I'd rather do outside of my family stuff is just kind of keep tabs on these big guys and the few that I find and watch the young ones grow up. And, I'm the happiest guy in the world when I'm out in the woods for 5 or 6 days by myself, which, might be a little bit of a hermit. when it comes to that kind of thing. There's nothing I like more in the mountains. So to me, it's my peaceful place to be. And being with the Whitetails, it also teaches me a ton about bears. I'm an avid elk hunter, archery elk hunter. I'm an avid bear hunter, archery, avid turkey hunter. And learning how to hunt these whitetails in this very detailed and like almost surgical way has helped me a lot with my other hunting too, my other archery hunting.
Let me back up just a little bit now. You're doing tons of shed horn hunting. You're doing tons of shed horn hunting. You find a set of sheds. You're like, man, that's a heck of a buck. They migrate quite a bit. So then you must be looking at a map and thinking, okay, he's got to come. And then you're looking at terrain. And then that's when you're starting to look for a scraping area. Yeah,
what I'm doing, Rob, is with the sheds, it's all based on timing and snow level. So let's say I have a big buck I'm targeting, and I haven't killed a surprise buck since about 2000. So what I mean by that is every buck since about 2000, the last 20 years, 20 plus whitetails, sometimes I kill 2 or 3 a year, depending on how many states I'm hunting or how many tags I got. But all that to say, I have not had a surprise whitetail walk by me in almost 20 years.
Do you find that a little depressing though?
No, because I'm covering big country. And what ends up happening, Rob, and I am going to get to the question about the sheds and all that terrain, is I cover enough ground to where a lot of times I'll pick a buck up in the summer and he'll move 5 miles to his fall range. Some of my bucks stay. Some of my bucks get moved by lions and wolves, and then I'll find them in a different drainage. But I have enough stuff laid out to where I can pick them up and kind of keep track of where they like to, like literally where they bail to when the hunters start hunting them.
5 miles.
I'm scouting the heck out of the hunters. I try to stay way ahead of all of the influx of hunting pressure.
Okay, so 5 miles in the mountains is a hell of a long ways.
Yeah, I've got base map pinpoints. Tyson, my youngest boy, killed a buck on the Whitetail Addictions show that's out right now, that just came out. He killed a buck we called 5 brow. He had 5 different points off of one brow tine, down on his bases and up his brow. And he was so easy to identify because of that 5 brow. It was so easy to tell who he was. He was a big 150 class 5-point gross, a gross 150, about a 145 frame with some junk. But anyway, Tyson killed that deer based on our intel, our camera intel, and seeing him at the tree stands from the previous 2 years. He would always summer in one drainage at about 3,800 feet on a certain scrape area that we had. And then every year, right about the end of October, for 2 years straight before we wanted to kill him, before he got to that good age, he would move on a map, across a map, 5 miles on a map. So, you and I both know that's down through a big drainage, up a mountain, and over into another one. So you and I both know that's probably 8-9 miles of walking for him. And he would move into this other drainage and address this incredible community scrape that I found shed hunting that's already been there for decades. And I've got cameras on it right now. It's one of the best scrapes I've ever seen in the Northwest, for me personally. But he would always come over, move in on these doe family groups, address this scrape for about 2.5, 3 weeks. So we knew when Ty killed him that we needed to be there that year at the certain week. We needed, there's about 7 to 10 day window that he should show up based on his previous 2 years of information. And sure enough, the first day we went in there and set up on him, Ty killed him. And that's pretty cool when you're killing a buck in the mountains that moves 5 miles.
I saw that video. That's awesome. It's so cool to have your kid, to watch your kid have success like that. That's amazing. But why do you suppose that deer would do that? What drives him, do you think?
I personally believe that it's different in every equation. And where that buck was summering, there's still a buck at that summering spot that I'm going to hunt this year. There was 2 bucks at that summering spot. And because I run so much video, he he was never the dominant tough guy.
The one you killed, the five brow? The five brow?
Yeah, the five brow buck, in my opinion, knew that he wasn't going to dominate the two bigger bucks that were over in that spot where he summered with them. So I feel like he came to where we killed him, and he did that for 2 years straight, because I really feel like we don't give these deer enough credit. These whitetail bucks, they know who the tough guy is in the neighborhood, or they get their butt whipped, or they just know who the badass is. And I see this a lot with 4-year-old bucks, 3 and 4-year-olds. If they know that they really don't have a big chance to do a lot of breeding because there's 2 guys above them that are kind of handling most of it, I see those 3 and 4-year-olds move a ton. And I think that's why you'll see most guys in North Idaho shoot a nice 3.5 or a 4.5 and see him in a spot they've never seen him before. Those 3.5 and 4.5-year-old bucks are like 17 to 25-year-old men. They travel, they cover ground, they try to find a niche, and they try to get in on the ladies, and they try to get away from the 5 and 6 and 7-year-old bucks that kind of hold down the fort in different areas. So that's why I think he did that. I think he was moving a lot. And I think if we wouldn't have killed him that year, he would have kind of established himself as one of the big guys that next year when he most of my most dominant bucks are 5 or 6. They really established themselves at age 5 and 6. And he just wasn't quite there yet. Ty killed him at 4.5, and he was a 150 class gross buck. He's 140, and if you net him out, he's probably low 140s, but he grossed right at 150 because all of his junk. But anyway, all that to say, he probably would have ended up being a 160 class buck in his prime, just because he would have added the mass. And he also body-wise wasn't quite there yet. The biggest deer that I get on in these big woods, a lot of their bodies when we dress them are 220, 230, 240 dressed. So they get really big when they get older.
Wow. Now, that was kind of what I was going to ask. You think at some point that he's going to stick to his summer range because he's tough enough to hang there? He doesn't feel the need to move.
Yeah, it really is. It really boils down to if he's the man, he'll stay. If he's got all the does he wants and he's happy where he's at and feels safe, if they feel safe and they know it's not a heavily pressured spot and they know they can survive the predators in the area. Another thing I'll throw in about that 5-brow buck, he had a pack of wolves running through there on him a lot. So part of that could have been the equation because we had more wolves in that spot than any other spot that year, the 2 years we had him. So he might have just been being careful with the wolves too. There's a lot that falls into the equation, but I also get some bucks that are homebodies, I call them. And a lot of it has to do with their personality. Some bucks really like to venture out and go somewhere else in the rut and do great big rutting routes where their routes will be 10 miles in a day sometimes. And I base that off of trail camera evidence, 24-hour period, 10-mile area, really big areas they can cover when they're really rutting. I also have some old hermit type bucks that the older they get, the less they move. Their rutting routes at different scrapes are pretty close. And, I hunted a buck this year that was just tremendous buck. And I'll bet he never put on more than a 4-mile circle ever, even during the rut. And that's really not a big area for a mountain buck. 4 miles isn't really that far for them. But based on all my different trail camera pictures of him and videos at different scrapes, he was kind of just adhering to 5 or 6 doe family groups in one drainage. And he just kind of stayed in there all the time. And he was real careful. He was always had his nose in a favorable wind anytime he came in. All of my cameras on video I set up with the old man's beard hanging out in front of it, the moss.
My God, you're genius. Holy smokes.
So I always know what my buck's coming into and how careful he is.
Oh, dude, that is an awesome tip. You want me to edit that out so just me and you know that?
No, let people know. I mean, it's real simple.
Awesome.
It's simple. Yeah, if you ever watch my videos, like ever look at my YouTube, you'll find a piece of old man's beard somewhere in that video hanging in the wind and showing me my wind direction.
Oh my gosh, that is
because I cross reference that. I write every big buck's name down. I have all kinds of data on him, and I put down every spot that he shows up in the daylight and with what wind direction he's using to get there, and thermals, and the thermal mix with it.
So let me ask you this. Now, I'm sure you heard of the Wenzel brothers, Barry and Gene Wenzel's.
Grew up watching those guys when I was a kid.
Yeah. So what are they talk about some bucks that they suspect of moving with the wind to their back, so that they're using their eyes and yet can smell behind them. You feel like, is that something you think you've seen?
Here's what I see in the thick mountains where they can only see 50 feet in front of their face. They at least quarter into the wind. When I hunt, that's a great question, Rob. When I hunt North Dakota and deer can see a mile, guess what I see them doing out there?
Really?
Walking with the wind at their back. Yes. So a great question. I think you have to relate it to what the deer need in their specific habitat. You know, the Wenzel boys are in Iowa now. They got out of the Northwest and moved to Iowa to the creme de la creme of whitetail hunting. Those guys spent some time in Montana in the river bottom stuff for years.
Gene's back in Bitterroot.
Oh, is he? Awesome. And that's my point, is those guys know this country too. You know, they understand the mountains, the thermals. You know, Iowa's a big draw for a lot of people. Personally, for me, and I always say this on my podcast, I'd never want to leave the mountains because I think these deer have taught me more than anywhere on earth they could teach me, just because they're so highly pressured by predators. They're so careful.
No, so let me just stop you now. We're a bit over an hour and 10.
That's okay.
You good with this? Because, man, I've got a lot of questions.
Rob, I usually do. Most of my podcasts usually end up about 2 hours. The guys split them up if they need.
No, perfect. My audience has a big appetite. They all have long drives, apparently.
Sounds good. I don't mind, and I enjoy talking about just the real intricacies of these deer in the mountains.
Now let me derail you a little bit. Let me ask you a question now. So you're basing most of your initial finds on sheds, and then you're moving into, okay, where is this buck living? You're not or are you looking at feed? Are you looking at what level do you look at bedding areas? Because that's just something you always hear about Midwest. Oh, moving from the bedding area to the feed. Talk about that a little bit.
It's a different playing field out here. It's completely different.
Thank you.
Number one, our deer can eat anywhere they want all day long in every direction.
Yes.
They bed where they can feed. They don't even have to get up and move if they don't want to. You and I both know, Rob, we have water in every darn draw, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Every draw has water in it. Every mountain has trickles everywhere, springs everywhere right now. You know that. We take pictures right now out behind my house. It is so green and so lush. Our underbrush, our understory, our logging country is full of feed. We literally have so much feed for deer. I mean, that's why we can grow giant bucks if they're allowed to get old. We have great feed. I sat and talked with a Corps of Engineer guy 20 years ago, and this guy was really intelligent he's kind of almost like a botanist. I mean, he was a Corps of Engineer guy, but he knew all the native species plants up here. And he was telling me the protein percentages in some of our plants, and it blew my mind.
Really?
You know, it was unbelievable. He was talking to me about 15 to 26% protein percentages in a lot of our native feed, which blew my mind. And he was rattling off all these names of these plants that I'd never heard of. You know, I was too young then, and I was just blown away. And one of the plants that we have a ton of is ceanothus. You know, our animals love to eat that. But all that to say, our deer hide out in areas, and I call them bedding zones because it's a big area. They don't lay in one bed every day. What all of our deer do in the mountains is they use the thermals and the prevailing winds every day to keep them alive from lions and wolves and bears. Then they deal with us sometimes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't if they don't precisely set themselves up based on what that day's wind is, then they get killed. So what our big deer do and our old does and our smart bucks and does do is they put themselves in a position every day to have the most favorable wind advantage that they can find. And that means they might bed on one side of a ridge one day and feed a certain direction. And then the next day when they get a different wind, they'll bed on the other side of the ridge and feed a different direction. And I've killed a lot of bucks doing that. I remember my son saying to me, Dad, let's go. When we killed that 11-year-old buck, we were talking about hunting him, and we called him Wide Rack. And when we killed that old fart, we were going to go. We had a beautiful day to go hunting one day, and Ty said, Dad, let's go hunt that buck. You know, and we had a couple other ones in there too, but Wide Rack was in there. And I said, well, son, it's a waste of time. We can't. He goes, Dad, it's a beautiful day. Let's go hunt him. I said, well, that stand is in a position where those deer won't even come our way that day because they won't have a wind advantage. And he was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we waited till the deer had the wind that they needed to come by our tree stand, and our tree stand's positioned so that we can get in and out of it, not cross them at all. They come through a little saddle, hit a scrape, move out down a mountain and go feed. And we just waited for the wind to be right for those bucks. And sure enough, that day, it was like clockwork. He had the wind he needed. He thought he was totally safe. We're hunting high and just off to the edge of his wind. My wind is missing that buck by 10 yards on that video when I kill him. You know, and that's just the game I play with these big deer is, right? I've splitting hairs sometimes, flirting with some danger when it comes to wind, because if I just hunt with the wind in my face, guess how many big deer I see, Rob?
Yeah. 0.
Guess how many I see if the wind's in my face with a bow and arrow?
Yeah. 0.
0.
Yeah.
0. I have never killed a big buck in the mountains without them at least having a wind quartering to them.
I'll tell you, I've had off the top of my head, I've had 4 really successful big buck killers from all across the country. Not just Nathan Killen. He mentioned the same thing. Hunting wind that's almost wrong. That's what I hear, and that's what I hear you saying. And that's a common thread for sure among successful.
I call it a wind edge. Yeah. I hunt the edge of the wind. My bucks that come in, and when I shoot them at bow range in these mountains, they always come in thinking they are 100% safe, and they're not crazy. They're not nervous. They're not skittish. They walk in. They're being careful like they always do. They're smelling my scrape. My scrape's also a great scent distraction for them because they've been hitting it for years or for several days if they just found it. So my bucks are always coming in thinking they have me beat, and then I'm nowhere near them.
Wow, you're dropping some knowledge on me. As you're talking, I keep going back to the video camera running with moss at certain times of day. I
cross-reference all of that, Rob, even in the summer. I just posted on my Facebook, I don't know if you looked at it, but 2 of my nice bucks hitting my licking branches right now 2 days ago.
Really?
I don't know if you saw that video clip.
I haven't been on Facebook yet today.
Okay, I'll just play this one for you. You'll see, if you look real close in my video, if you check that out, I did post a video up, and I've got a real nice 4-year-old walk in. It's a southwest wind, and guess which way he's walking into the scrape? Northeast. Really? Because the wind's coming out of the southwest, headed toward the northeast, and guess which way both those bucks walk into the scrape right now in the summer. And that's the stuff I pay close attention to. That always gives me the intel of what direction those bucks will enter that scrape on that given wind, and where I need to be set up and how I need to get in and out without crossing their path. You can't cut them off either coming in. If you leave a scent stream walking in and cut your big bucks off, you never see them. You only see them on your camera at night or in other days when you're not there. And I've screwed that up before. I've learned the hard way on some bucks that just outdid me in the past. And, I don't like to lose. So I try to make those mistakes be a one-time mistake and then change. And there's times where I'll go an extra mile or half a mile just to get into a tree stand the right direction.
Well, So how are you deciding where that wind edge is?
So I use terrain-based features in the mountains to set my stands up a lot of times on the edge of I'll set out on the edge of a ridge or a nice little bench, but I'll come in from the east a lot because, as you know, Rob, what is the predominant winds we get through our year? We hardly ever get an east wind, hardly ever.
Yeah,
straight
man,
east.
nail on the head there.
Right. How many straight east winds do we get up here?
No, not at my place.
One or two a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the majority of my stands, and I can get into some detail about wind banking in certain places. The wind will bank off of mountain ridges in certain places where you have to get in and decipher the wind once you're standing there. And then you can play a different game based on how the wind banks. But back to answer your question, the majority of my tree stands in these mountains up here are somewhere in the easterly direction of where my scrape is. And I make sure I can always shoot that scrape. Mm-hmm. And it's usually a 20 to 25 yard shot. So with that being said, I come in a lot from the east on my bucks. A lot, not always. And I like to come in from higher ground. I like to come in from higher ground. Why? Because the predominant part of the day, or the most part of the day, for the most part, the wind is going to blow uphill during the daytime when I'm sitting in a stand all day because of the thermal. And it's going to catch that prevailing south or west wind or a mix of that, and it'll kick my wind right back out where I walked in. And then I'll use terrain features like big draws or big ravines. Like I've got this really wicked spot I'm hunting right now where I cut in from the east down a little finger ridge, drop down into this deep ravine, cross a creek, literally hands and feet climb up a steep bank 40 yards, pop up on this little bench 2 yards, maybe 3 yards onto this bench and climb up a tree. Everything out in front of me is untouched, unmolested with scent, and my scrape sitting out there beyond me. My bucks roll up through there with a nice wind in their face, quartering to them, and they can roll through, check that scrape, and they have no idea I'm setting off to the edge. And then those draws, when you hunt the mountains out of tree stands as much as I do, the big draws, if you set up right on the edge of one behind you and you enter through it, those draws suck the thermal suck down those draws like a vacuum. So it's just perfect for me with
not only that, but with that draw side, you might be 20 feet up in a tree, but that draw side 60 feet down.
You nailed it. It's 60 or 70 feet below me, and my old bucks they don't really want to walk up through that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be full of blowdowns, so I'll go in the summer and take my little quiet electric chainsaw and I'll cut a tiny little path up through it to my stand. So that I'm not stepping over the blowdowns. I do it all. I mean, right now when I'm checking cameras and prepping scrapes, I'm literally cleaning my trails constantly this time of the year so that when I hunt it at August 30th, I'm dialed. All I need is that buck to check that licking branch early.
So let me ask you that. August 30th, we get one tag. You hunting whitetails August 30th?
I've got 3 kills August 30th to September 1st, a 150, a 140, and a 185.
What do you do I guess we're probably out of state the rest of the year.
No. What I mean is you asked me if I like to hunt that first week. Yeah, 3 of my greatest whitetails I've killed with a bow out of 40 of them. One of my biggest deer I've ever killed was September 1st.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it's because he was checking my licking branch at my scrape. He's not hitting the dirt, doesn't even care about the dirt yet, but he likes that licking branch. Every big buck I've shot in velvet, I've actually shot 3 in velvet. I lost one or missed one. We never could tell if I hit him or not because we never found the arrow. But I've shot it. I've killed 2 out of 3 velvets, and then I killed a September 1st, just had velvet hanging off of his rack, all in Idaho. And every one of them was walking through a scrape and checking the licking branches all summer.
But then you're done in Idaho. I mean, that'd be great. Shoot a
No,
150.
you can get 2 tags in Idaho. You
Well,
can have a
you're not going to.
non-resident out.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to this year. They're sold out by August 1st
No,
this year.
unless you already bought one.
We'll talk about that off air.
I know. Anyway, all that to say, you're asking, kind of in the past. Yes, I would always buy 2 tags in Idaho if I had 2 shooters.
Yeah.
If I had 2 good shooters, Rob, I'd buy 2 tags ahead of time. Yes.
Well, I do it. I do it just because I want to hunt, and just so listeners know, we're buying a non-resident tag, so that second deer tag is costing us
$300.
Yeah, $300. So
it's a $300 tag that I like to buy every year. I base it now on if I have 2 bucks I want to kill.
Yeah,
so it depends every year on what I find in the summer. But right now they're all sold out. You're right. If you didn't buy one early, you're out of the game this year for 2.
So let me just throw this out there. You might know this, but I saw this in action just 4 days ago. A buddy of mine, who I hunt with quite a bit, we were, last, this, I guess, was this spring. We were trying to move in on a bear. The sun was setting, and it had been a warm day. And I said, man, if we start to approach that from that direction, that sun's going to set and the thermals are going to slide. And my buddy said, he's rock solid, Jake Strohmeyer. He said that canyon is so hot, those thermals
are going to
continue to. And man, he was right, and I saw it just 3 or 4 days ago, sitting on a stand. That sun started to set, and I thought, man, that thermal should start to sink, but the canyon is holding so much heat that it's continuing to rise. Man, the light bulb went off.
Yeah, anytime you want to have a longer rising thermal, hunt a south side.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Anytime you want to have a dropping thermal quick, hunt a north face or a northeast or a northwest face. He's exactly right. It's all about that heat. And if those canyons are hot and have a lot of rock in them and hold a lot of heat, that thermal will last sometimes till dark.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point listeners can learn from. I base all of my thermal information on the slope that I'm on, north, south, east, or west, or a combination of 2.
Expound on that just a little bit. So on an east face, what are you looking at?
I usually move in from the east on a lot of my deer because of our prevailing winds and our thermals. So when I get into an east face, the thermals, as you bend from the north into the east around, into the south, you feel the thermals get warmer and they last longer. So I have to play it based on where I'm set up. I have a lot of stands that are set to the east of my scrape, but I rarely sit out on an east facing. I have one stand. Okay, there we go. I got one stand that faces the east. And the reason I hunt it there is the ridge runs northeast to southwest. And I have to come in from the southwest. I don't have a choice because of a logging road that's there. So I come in off the logging road, I walk way down onto the ridge, it benches out, I get out into this really cool saddle where the deer like to run northeast over the ridge down into the southwest. And it's a nice saddle. I got a big scrape in there. So I'm kind of perched up in my stand looking towards the southeast, if that makes sense.
Yep.
That thermal, because I'm in enough of the southeast part of it, it pushes up late into the evening, if that answers your question.
Yeah.
If I were to walk 60 yards through the saddle and drop over into that northwest side, that thermal would drop probably almost an hour earlier, and my stand position would have to be set up to deal with that.
My head is reeling. I'm going through spots that I have now. Trying to review.
The thermals kill a lot of guys on bear and whitetails that are bow hunting them out of a tree stand.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get that switch, especially especially if you're in a hard south or a hard north. You're going to get big switches.
Yeah.
And distinct switches during daylight.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I like to, you hear me up on ridges a lot because guess what the prevailing wind does for me a lot? If it's 7 miles an hour or faster, it dominates the thermal and keeps my scent right where I want it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's under 6 miles an hour or slower, then you start getting those stinking, banking, swirling, mixing winds with the thermals. So I love it when I see 7 to 12 mile an hour winds. Love it.
Well, let me ask you this. You got, say you're hunting tomorrow. You're watching the wind. How often do you have to go, you know what? It's just not worth it. I just can't hunt today. Because I have found myself more often than not, making that decision, and it's a tough decision. I just shouldn't hunt today.
I make sure, Rob, that I have option 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 always, so that I never have an excuse not to hunt on a day I can hunt. What I'm saying is, Rob, is I have different setups for different winds, just so that I always can hunt a big buck somewhere. But no, I hear you. There are certain stand sites that I just won't hunt on a certain day because I don't want to put all that work into my scouting, watching a buck grow up. I know I'm only going to get one chance to kill him with a bow and arrow. And when I get that chance, I have to make it happen because you're not going to shoot at these big mountain bucks at 20 yards and then come right back to you. That doesn't happen. That does not happen out here. It's never happened to me in my life. So I always make it a point to kill them. So my point to that is I'm going to go in there when that buck has a wind that he thinks is perfect for him, but I know that it's perfect for me off that edge or that flirting with disaster type edge, or like your guy said, almost a wrong wind, but it's still right for me. And Rob, another thing I do is I hunt high in the mountains. I hunt at 25, 30 feet.
Oh, really?
Yes. I get away from some obstacles when it comes to wind, and I sacrifice. It's a steeper angle, but I've killed so many deer at that steep angle that it's real comfortable for me. But I got to make shots that really count. And, the buck fever thing and all that nervousness can't be there to make those shots. So for me, it's been years and years of getting better at it and shooting a lot of deer. And now it's just, I actually prefer shooting a buck down through his top of his lung and down through his lung and down, blow out the bottom, blow his heart out, and I shoot a setup that'll blow right through him. And of course I don't want to hit his shoulder, and I don't ever try to, but I'm usually blowing through a buck at 10 to 20 yards, and I'm pretty high. And I'm always, I can't remember the last time I didn't get a pass through.
Yeah. That grind. Well, I've mentioned it on this podcast before. I mean, when you see modern equipment and you see somebody shooting at 25 yards and doesn't get a pass through on a whitetail deer, something's wrong. They did something wrong.
Right. So if I ever graduate to big boy status and use a traditional bow, I'm going to have to change a few things up because I want pass throughs.
No, I'm telling you, man, I have, you're hard pressed not to get a pass through with a stick bow, and it's more arrow weight. You will surprise yourself.
Good. Yeah. Are you guys shooting mostly 2-blade stuff?
No, I shoot 4-blade. A 2-blade with a bleeder.
Are you getting through stuff good?
Oh, absolutely. I shot 3 blades for a long time. I have never not had a pass through on a whitetail, and I'm trying to think maybe 3 elk that I didn't pass through.
What about that steep angle I'm talking about? You ever shot stuff?
Yeah.
Okay,
cool. I shot a buck high right on one side of the spine, down through and through the heart, right through the heart.
Perfect.
And dude, it is.
That's good to hear. I like hearing that. And I do run modern equipment, but I run a real heavy arrow, Rob.
Yeah,
real heavy.
And that's the key. And I mentioned Aaron Schneider in the beginning. Go look at some of his stuff. He was a long distance Western hunter with compound gear who challenged himself in 2016 to start shooting a stick bow. And he just raves about, man, he never thought stick bows would have the, the penetrating power and blow through critters continually. That's a non-issue.
That's awesome.
We can talk about that some other time.
No, that's great though. That's good to hear, because I know that I will gravitate towards that more when I have, like I said early in the podcast, I want the time. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to things, and I really respect the hell out of the animals I'm hunting. I don't want wounded animals. It crushes me. I hate it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's serious. I owe it to them to give a quick, efficient, great kill, or I'm not happy. And, I've raised my son that way too. This ain't about slinging arrows. This is about making a precision kill that's extremely lethal and ethical. And that's something I brought my boys up their whole life now, that it's serious. This is serious stuff. We're taking the life of an animal. And it's just, go ahead.
You can't say it any better than you just said it right there. I'm a stickbow guy. You know me, I've been a stickbow guy for a long time.
I love it.
And there's some people that will try to divide the two.
There's, I really hope that a lot, most bow hunters care enough to think that way. It makes me sick to my stomach when I hear guys telling stories of slinging arrows and hoping they draw blood so they can track him down. That kind of stuff makes me want to puke.
Well, living here, over the last 30 years, how many times you hear, hey, I stuck one. I never found him. I mean, you hear that a lot.
Pisses me off. I mean, we're taking the life of an animal. And, to me, it's about getting them home, eating them. It's precious. I mean, my family literally lives on deer and elk because we choose to. I don't like going to the grocery store. I don't like eating I don't like eating food products from the world food system. That's just me. I love that my boys have grown up on elk and deer their entire life, and bear.
We're getting that feedback now. You must have moved your phone.
Are we good now? Is that better?
Yeah. So I got to ask you, what's an 11-year-old deer taste like?
I love this question. Rob, we cut up all of our own animals. We have for 3 decades. I do it all myself. We do it in-house. My wife's excellent at it. My boys are. I have never in my life tasted a bad deer or elk.
Nice.
We are meticulous. We leave no fat on them, no mesentery. We cut off every slice of silver there is. The only thing that goes through our grinder or in our steaks is clean, red, pure protein meat. I've never eaten a bad animal. Plus, I'm not breaking bladders and shit bags and running that all over my meat when I'm dressing them.
Absolutely.
The only thing I do now, Rob, the last decade almost, is I do everything boneless.
Yep.
Because
here.
I'm packing my big bucks up out of holes.
Yeah.
And my bulls. Everything's boneless for me now. I don't pack bones. I take all the meat off. I don't gut them. Gutless and leave the bones in. Yeah, take the bones off, the meat off the bone. I'm just packing meat out now, and I love it. I'll kill a buck, and I'll cape him out, take all the meat off of him, flip him over, take all the meat off that side, have the cape done up to his neck. Everything I'm killing, I like to mount. I like to put on a shoulder mount. Just the respect thing for me for the deer. I love seeing that memory the rest of my life. But all that to say, I'm trying the best I can to pack my bucks out in one trip, and it's heavy if I can. And some of the big deer, I got to make 2 trips. My elk by myself is usually 4.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't pack bone. I haven't packed a bone in a decade.
Yeah.
And the meat's incredible.
Yeah. I've been leaving that last bone in the, we're still getting that feedback. The last bone in the, the ball on the hind quarter. I leave that to try to give it some structure, but I'll take that first knuckle. But I'm with you there. But we've come a long ways, man. It was flat true quarter 30 years ago.
Oh, I know. I love to have a backpack full of meat, just straight meat, the back straps, the fronts, the shoulders, everything, all the good neck meat, throw it in a pack. And then I have that cape and that head, throw it all on and see if I can pack it up out of there, for a whitetail.
Oh, that's awesome.
And a big whitetail, I used to weigh them all the time. The big whitetails in North Idaho will dress over 200 pounds. They will dress over 200.
Dang.
The old bucks will. The ones that get full skeletal maturity. We've got bucks walking around in the mountains right now that in the middle of or late summer, early fall will weigh 250 to 270 pounds. The biggest one. They'll
Really?
weigh that much. And yes. We've got some whitetails in this country, Rob, even up by where you're at, that I guarantee you have crossbred with mule deer over the years. Guarantee
no
it.
kid, you think so?
Yeah, I know. I 100% believe it. I've talked to some of the experts in the whitetail world about it, and I'm talking to, Dr. James Kroll and Gordon Whittington and those guys, and it's proven by science that they have. I see some whitetails right now in some of my areas. They have those great big boxy bodies like a mule deer, and some of my biggest whitetail bucks have black tips on their tails.
Really?
Yes. And I've probably got as many forked whitetails, great big deep forks like muleys have. I feel like I have as many on camera as anybody does. Just that big kind of, and it's not a mule deer, but you can see that somewhere in the past, maybe a buck bred a doe or something. And I know that they've had to have crossbred a little bit, and they live right amongst each other. I'm hunting high elevation where half of the deer on my cameras are mule deer sometimes.
Gosh, it was August. It was late August. Still getting that feedback, but late August, back when they used to have that August 30th mule deer tag, I was scouting with Dan Davis over in the cabinets here, and watched two whitetails, and I mean smaller whitetails, like 3x3s. Two of them beat up on a pretty nice 3-point mule deer, and I mean just thrash them. So, they say that the whitetail are more aggressive than those mule deer, but we watched them that night. One of them broadsided him while the other one had him head on. I mean, they thrashed this mule deer.
It seems like in all of my high elevation spots that when the whitetails move in, the mule deer disappears. So that tells me the whitetails definitely have the dominance.
Yeah, they did that night. Man, we didn't even get past September.
Well, let's talk early season real quick. You were asking me about feed and bed and all that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for early season for me, I'm not hunting feed and bed. I'm hunting licking branches and scrapes.
Okay.
So I'm hunting whitetail deer on a different playing field than most people. The one thing that my whitetail bucks will always do in September, August, September, October, November, December, they will always go check licking branches at really good scrapes. And they'll do it in the daylight 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes up to 5 times a week. On a big whitetail buck, if you get him 3 times a week in the daylight, you're doing pretty good in this country. So that's the game I play. That licking branch is where they want to deposit their scent to let all the deer know that, hey, the testosterone's raising up. The rut will be here in a few months. Ladies, I'm here. I'm around. And some of my bucks are a little less frequent than that based on their personality, and they pick it up as time moves on. But what I've learned about hunting scrapes versus just worrying about feed and bed is that if I position my community scrapes where doe family groups overlap a big buck's kind of core living area, boy, do I get a lot of frequency at those spots at my scrape.
Oh, I'll bet.
It's really good. And you'd be surprised at some of the elevations I'm getting where that's really good at. And again, just to the listeners, I'm in the deep timber, heavy security cover, beautiful ridges. I am not in a popular area for people on hardly any of my spots. guys ask me all the time, do you get a lot of people on your trail cameras? No.
Well, how far, when you leave the pickup, what's an average walk?
Oh, to a stand, a mile.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
a true mile.
Yeah. Yep. I'm there.
A true mile that's kind of hard to get to.
Yeah.
Some of my spots are uphill and steep. Some of them are down deep enough on a big ridge to where guys wouldn't want to pack a deer out. I just like to add obstacles in because deer like to live in those places that are less intruded by humans. Or excuse me, they like to move in the daylight in those places. So yeah, a lot of times it's around a mile. I think the closest walk I have from parking my truck, and I can only hunt this spot by parking there the night before. So when I hunt this one really good spot I have, I drive in the night before about 9:00 at night, sleep in my truck, tiptoe out of my truck before daylight, sneak down in, climb into my stand right when I can barely see, and I sit all day. That spot never works if I drive in the morning.
Huh.
So I just sleep in my truck on those closer spots.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Now, do you feel like you need to be in your stand at the crack of dawn, or is every stand different because of wind?
Every stand, I base it on the thermal and how that thermal is going to work when I get into it.
Yeah.
And I also base it on the video and trail camera evidence of when my buck likes to come through. So if I got a big buck that literally only comes through in the morning because he's ascending up a mountain to get to his bedding zone, and I'm catching him at, say, 7:30 in the morning, getting way up high, I'm not going to go in there and hunt him in the afternoon only. I'm going to be there early enough to where the downhill thermal doesn't ruin my set or doesn't ruin it. So my stand's going to be set up where he's coming up through on a path that my stand is off to the side enough, and there's some type of terrain barrier that he won't walk right up under me. It might be a bunch of blowdowns, a really steep draw, like we said, a bluff. I've got it all planned out so that when he comes up through, he's got that downhill thermal still blowing in his face, and he's moving up the mountain, and he'll come through, check my scrape, and move by. And I've killed a lot of bucks in the morning at 7:30 for some reason. And I think it's because I'm hunting them high, and I'm killing them probably 300 yards from where they want to lay down for the day, roughly 200 to 300 or 400 yards.
Okay.
And I'm usually crawling into that tree stand right at the crack of dawn. I don't like to crawl into any tree stand in the mountains in the dark. I want to be able to see a deer down at my scrape if it's there. And what I do is sneak in real careful and quiet, and I watch 50, 80 yards away. And man, if I see any body of a deer down there, I just stop. I don't want to blow my big buck off if he's in real early or something and ruin it for the rest of the season. So for me, I sneak in, whisper quiet, always have my path cleaned out when I go in early in the summer. I think I talked about that earlier. And I play it very careful getting into my stand. There's some stands, Rob, that I only hunt in the afternoon and only can approach from the top going down because of the uphill thermal. There's some stands in the morning I have to come in underneath them and come in from the side and basically get in the tree stand and get in just before the bucks are coming up the hill too, out beyond me.
Oh, man, my head is reeling again. I don't know how I'm going to get all this. Yes, it does. And I don't know how I'm going to get all this done with whitetail on the brain and elk on the brain now. You got me going.
Whitetail entrance and exit are huge if you're a stand hunter. It's so important.
Yeah.
And so many spots are ruined by guys, and they don't mean to, but they don't realize that their entrance and exit is completely dragging their scent stream right across the deer where the deer want to approach when they come in and leave. Guys talk about how late do you stay in a stand if you have deer there. Well, if you're hunting scrapes, deer passing through, they're not staying there forever. They come through, they check the scrapes, they move on. So if you're hunting traveling deer, it usually only takes 5, 10, 15 minutes, and they're moved on. They're on to the next thing.
Dang. This is good stuff, buddy.
So early season, to answer your question, we're not hunting soybean fields.
Yeah.
We're hunting the mountains. We're not hunting a small congregated bedding area where deer have to bed to stay alive. We're hunting vast, huge country. And the reason I'm a scrape hunter is because it's the one consistent location that the deer in a drainage will address. And if it's in the right location, the right kind of cover and security to them, they will address it in the daylight.
Man, it's good stuff. Now,
and then as the season, Rob, as the season, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nope, please.
As the season moves on, it just gets better, because then they start working not just the licking branch, all the deer start really addressing the dirt. They start urinating. A lot of bucks will urinate and defecate in the scrape just to leave more scent of their own. They're leaving their interdigital scent in the scrape. They're digging in it. They're hammering it with their forehead gland. They're leaving saliva all over the licking branches. Their preorbitals hitting it. I mean, they're just laying down their identification card, and they start picking up frequency. You know, some of my favorite days to hunt whitetails are late October, because the scrape action's incredible. And there's days where I'll watch 7, 8, 9, 10 bucks go through a scrape in one day. It's wicked.
You are kidding me.
Now I'm not talking about all giants. I'm talking about babies all the way up to maybe a 4 or 5 year old.
Wow. That's unbelievable. In this country, I don't think people realize in this country to see that many bucks in a day is
if you go on my YouTube, if you go on my YouTube and look at my October videos, sometimes you'll see 3 or 4, and even September. You should look at my September videos too. September's wicked, and so is October. September's a really big licking branch month. October, they do it all. What you end up seeing in October is a lot of the insubordinate bucks, the younger bucks that are 1, 2, and 3 years old, 3.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. Those bucks want to get going so bad, and they don't quite have it figured out yet, and their testosterone levels are jumping through the roof. They're like teenagers. You know, they will come into my scrape sometimes 3 times in a day. Now, my bigger bucks are more careful, and they know what's up, and they understand that the estrus cycle isn't there yet. October, I might get 1 or 2 of the big boys to cruise through. I've killed a couple really big bucks in October over scrapes, but not as many as I see in November, because, you know, the bigger boys are up moving more for a purpose, because those are coming into heat. But it's good all the way through. All the way through. August 30th, all the way to December 24th, you can kill a buck in a scrape.
Really? So
and it's really about the licking branch.
Yeah,
way more than just the dirt.
So you're never really changing your tactics?
No, I like to let my let's talk about that. That's actually a good one. I'm always trying to evolve and become better. One of the things that I do a lot different now is, if it's not going down, and if my big bucks aren't doing what they should be doing, I will move on them, Rob, in the middle of the season. And what I end up doing is moving closer to their bedding zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I base that on the evidence that I have on my cameras or what I'm seeing in different areas. And I usually end up moving up an elevation on them. So I have become I would say I'm a semi-mobile hunter, not just purely mobile, because my scrapes are so good. I'm not going to leave those scrapes. I mean, that's how I've been killing deer for 30 years, you know, but I will move on a big buck, build a brand new mock scrape, put it right in his face and say, dude, you got to address this, because here's a scrape. And I make it look like to him and smell like to him that it's been there for 10 years and that he missed it. And you ought to watch those big deer find them. It's almost like they're miffed and baffled that they didn't know it was there. It's really cool to watch on video when they find them for the first time.
So say, you know, early November or mid-November, you're making the decision to move in on them.
Right.
Now, what's your scent regiment?
Yeah, that's important, and we haven't even talked about it. 20 plus years of using Vanishing Hunter from Buckfever Synthetics. This is my scientific breakdown of scent. We're always going to give off scent molecules, no matter what you say. Every predator in the woods gives off scent molecules. Wolves, lions, bears, humans, all of us do. White-tailed deer have to differentiate between whether or not that scent cone is a high molecular amount of scent molecules, a medium, or a low. So if it's a low amount of scent molecules, a deer will process that as somebody was here, a bad guy was here, whether it's a wolf or a human or a bear, doesn't matter. And they'll say in their brain, it will process as this isn't an immediate threat, but they were here maybe a day before, or maybe they're 400 or 500 yards away, because the concentration of scent molecules is not very dense. Okay, as soon as they process heavy scent concentration of molecules that's negative to them, they blow out. They freak out, they leave, they blow, they run off because they need to protect their lives. They do it with wolves, lions, bears, humans. Okay? So what I do as a hunter is I try to minimize the amount of scent that I'm putting out there as a profile or a scent cone. And that way, when, let's say one of my big bucks comes through and just happens to come in downwind of me or cross my path, because they don't always come in perfect, we all know that. What I see with my big bucks and my smart does is every now and then, because I'm so clean and I use that Vanishing Hunter, I'm extremely clean. I'll go into that in a second, some of my practices. They will pick their head up. They might look around for 1 or 2 seconds, and they literally process me as not being there, but I was there or I'm a long ways away, so they don't blow out.
Wow.
Okay, I always share this in all my seminars. Rob, if you and I are out shed hunting and we come across a skunk at 20 yards and we smell that skunk but can't see it, but it's 20 yards from us, we get a big whiff, right? So what will we do if we get that close to a skunk if we're in the woods?
High alert.
What do we do?
High alert.
High alert, get the hell away. There's a damn skunk here. Okay. Yeah. Let's say you and I walk through that same spot and a skunk's 200 yards from us and we just pick up a little whiff of him. How do you and I react?
Yeah, just laugh like, oh, yeah, there might be a skunk out there somewhere.
That's exactly the philosophy and approach I take with my deer and my human scent. I always try to make myself seem like, based on how much scent I'm allowing out, like I'm a lot further away or I was there a couple days before. And to add to that, whitetails have to differentiate that. And if they couldn't, elk, all prey animals have to be able to differentiate that, because if they couldn't, they would jump out of their skin every time they smell the predator. And they don't.
Good point.
They do not jump out of their skin when they smell a predator unless it's a high concentration of scent molecules. So what do I do to minimize? You'll never hear me say eliminate your scent. You can't do it. You'd have to live in a condom and hunt out of a condom, and that ain't going to happen.
Damn it. I was going to try that this year.
So anyway, real simple. My son's trying to call me. Sorry, I'll let it. So real simple, what I do, Rob, is I hang everything on an outdoor clothesline year round. All my hunting clothes never come in a house.
Really?
When I transport them, I like to throw them in a vented plastic box that can't get moisture in it unless it's raining. Then it's got to be inside, has to be sealed, or a scent-free garbage bag, simple black garbage bag with no scent to it. As soon as I get to my hunting area, my stuff gets hung on a tree. Everything I wear is always filtered outside. Ozone, not rain, but it's covered, like on my covered porch, but I do not allow my clothes to set in a house ever. Or if they're in a rig, it's only for a very short period of time in like I said, a black garbage bag. So my clothes always smell like they've been on a clothesline for days. So they're really clean. And then I spray down with that Vanishing Hunter right out of the shower. I do a full layer of Vanishing Hunter. I drive to my hunting area. get into my clothes out in nature. I get outside of my truck, throw my hunting clothes on. I always wear pickup clothes, I call them, or my truck clothes, pair of sweats or whatever. As soon as I get there, I don't care if it's 0 degrees or 90, I get outside of my rig, upwind from my rig, throw my hunting rig gear on. Most of my clothes are in my backpack. Even when it's really cold, I usually walk in. I mean, you'd laugh, but I walk in. I've walked in before for a mile in my long underwear when it's 0 degrees.
Dude, same here. I've done that. Same here.
Right. And then I throw my clothes on when I kind of have that 300-400 yard rule. When I get that close to my stand, stop, spray down again, literally have a set of base layers in my pack. If I break a sweat at all, I change all my base layers. So I always have an extra set of base layer in my pack. Throw on my spray down again, throw on my base layer, get down to my skivvy, spray down, base layers go back on that are clean and dry. So then I'm not cold. Put on my outerwear that's hanging on tree limbs, walk the 200 or 300 or 400 yards to the stand real slow. Don't break a sweat, crawl into the stand. And a lot of times that means you time your setup. You give yourself an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah.
So I'm not late. And then climb into that stand dry. So when you break a sweat, it'll kill you in the heat and it'll kill you in the cold. And a lot of the stuff we do in the mountains, it's going to break a sweat because it's a bitch to get there.
Yes, I agree.
So I play that game, Rob. And then when I get in the tree stand, I make sure the coast is clear. I'm very in tune with my surroundings and quietly spray down one more time with the Vanishing Hunter. So I've got 3 layers of Vanishing Hunter, brand new base layers on if I break a sweat, and my outer clothes have always been outside 99% of their time. Like literally right now I'm talking to you, and I know down at my house, all of my hunting clothes for the fall have been hanging out since last year. I'm not joking. They hang outside year round under a porch.
No kidding.
It's just the extreme I go to at least I know my clothes haven't been in the house.
That doesn't sound fun. I got to be honest with you. That doesn't sound fun.
It's a lot of work, and it's worth it. It's worth every one of those 5.5-year-old bucks and up, and those 150s up to those high 180s are worth it. And I still haven't broke the 190 mark, but I'm going to soon in Idaho or Washington or Montana, somewhere in the public land. That's my goal this year, is to kill a 190 or a 200.
Well, if anybody's going to do it, you're going to do it on purpose. I mean, somebody might accidentally into it. Like I ask everybody this now, you ever piss off your tree stand?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've even tested peeing and scrapes, just to make sure. I test everything. So yes, I'll piss off my tree stand anytime. I've never watched it spook a deer in my life, ever. And I kill old deer at my stands after the same day I pee off a tree stand.
Yeah, well,
done a lot of research on urine, done a lot of biological research on it. Urine is urine. As long as you're not pissing through your fingers and getting your human hand scent on it, you're probably fine.
Well, yeah, I'm 52 years old. I'm pretty well adapted not pissing through my hands, but I'll make the note of that.
I'm joking around, but guys ask me that all the time. And guys ask me, Troy, have you ever peed in a scrape? Yes.
Well,
did it scare your bucks? No. Does it work better than what you use Buckfever? No, I don't think it does. For whatever reason, my Buckfever is so dialed in that the synthetics that I use, and I think it's because it never rots. And I'm not saying my urine's rotten, but I just have really had such great luck with the synthetics that everywhere I go, I've hunted all over the nation: Alberta, North Dakota, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Iowa, Oklahoma, Ohio. I've been all over. Everywhere I've ever put out a synthetic mock scrape, I've never in my life watched a deer spook from it. The only time I've ever seen deer spook at my setups is when I screw it up and they smell me in a tree. When I screw up my setup and put my stand in the wrong place. And I'm honest about that stuff. I've never watched them walk up to my scrape and freak out.
Man,
it's fun stuff. I'm just basically, Rob, trapping whitetails.
Yeah.
It's a trapping system.
I would agree. You I mean, the level you're taking it is It is certainly that of a trapper.
It's just a trapper mentality on whitetails, and I read and study. I did for years just about how guys trapped. So that's why I wear the latex gloves. That's why I wear the knee-high rubber boots. That's why I never put my hands on a licking branch. Have I ever been a successful trapper of other animals? No. Could I be? When I retire, I'm going to start trapping, because that's all I do with whiteys is trap them with scent to come to me. I do it with elk. I use my Buckfever Synthetics. I've got a ton of that I use at my wallows and I use for my tree stand setups. All it does is put a great elk scent out around me like a herd of elk. That works good. I use it as cover scent on my boots. My bears, I use my Buckfever Synthetic. Kill really nice bears every year with my bow. I am hunting bait, but I'll tell you what, that bear scent's awesome to have around there. It doesn't hurt.
Man, you're dropping the knowledge, man. We got to hook back up and talk some more for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, Rob, I love helping people. We ain't going to be here forever. And I like, what I'm really enjoying right now is a lot of young guys, 15, 20, 25, 30 guys that aren't too proud to yak at me and visit with me. And I don't know everything. I listen to people all the time. I always pick little things up from guys that have spent a lot of time in the woods. And the thing I care about most now in life as a hunter is giving back and sharing some information, because I'm one of those guys that truly loves to see people be successful, work hard for it, be successful. I want to see our country really care about eating wild game, harvesting animals, respecting the animals, but also enjoying the process. And for me, I get as excited about what I'm doing right now in the summer with bucks, almost as exciting to me as killing one. When my son and I find sheds together, that's as good as it. Just the excitement that my son gets when we find a buck that we know, then we kill him later. We have a great reverence and respect for that deer, but we also get to share those moments in life that, I lost my dad when I was 17. My dad died, tragic logging accident. So for me, it's not about just me going out and having a bunch of secrets and killing a bunch of big deer and being cool. That's not what it's about. It's about sharing experience and a little bit of knowledge from a lot of years of effort. And I love it when guys send me a text and say, Troy, got a scrape rolling, check out this buck that's using it. And then later on, Troy killed this buck over this mock scrape that I built. And when I see those kind of texts or see that stuff going down, I'm as happy as me killing a deer.
I believe it, man.
I truly am.
And you were as passionate about it when I met you 25 years ago. You have not changed.
It's a healthy pastime. I'm not a bar guy. I don't care about that kind of stuff. If you could give me what I really wanted in life, I'd live 90% of my days in the mountains. I'd never come out. But I got to work. I got to make a living. I got a family, like all of us. And I'm just a working man. I'm a school teacher, 5 years left. I'm going to retire. And then I'm just going to totally devote my time to my side jobs that I love. I still log. I do some farming. I love to run heavy equipment, like to help people. But truthfully, I cannot wait to just spend 30 days a year in the woods instead of 200 partial days, 250
awesome.
Partial days.
That's awesome. Well, when you retire and when you're ready to get going, sounds like you already got a good start, but you ever need any help with stick bows, you give me a holler.
I'm going to come up, Rob, as soon as I have a little more time. I'll come up and let's start, we'll hang out and you can get me past the curve a little bit on just the right kind of practice, the shooting, because to me, the ultimate would be to get to a level where I can kill these great big mountain bucks off the ground with a stick bow.
Oh man. Yeah.
And film it. And I'm going to film it.
Oh, geez.
To me, that's the ultimate.
You mentioned the east wind, right? I'm not a whitetail guy. I love hunting whitetails. I don't put the time into it at your level, so I get out of it what I put into it. But you mentioned the east wind. The best buck I ever killed was from the ground, but I was in my tree stand. An east wind blew, rolled through it. East wind blew, and I panicked. Like, holy crap, east winds never blow. I jumped out of my stand. I ran a 300-yard circle and came around to the trail, took a knee, and shot my biggest whitetail buck off the ground because of that east wind. I knew exactly what he was going to do.
Oh, you got on the west side of him. That was perfect.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was awesome.
And that right there just shows how in tune you were with knowing what that buck would do if you stayed there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I get an east wind at my sets that are made for a west or a southwest or a north or anything but an east, I get out. I go home.
That was the right thing to different do.
Right. But I'm a hack. And hey, and Rob, I will tell you this. I haven't talked about this much. I've killed I've killed like 5 nice big whitetails off the ground with a compound, doing the same thing as you did. When I don't have the tree stand right for the wind, I do the same thing. I bail. I crouch down in the brush. I make myself a quick hole. I get set up and set on one knee till dark. I've killed 2 back behind my place here by doing that because these bucks were coming out of a big timber edge into an old clear cut. I didn't have a tree to get in. All the trees were 15 feet tall, and little. So I get what you're saying. I just, one day I want to have the time and get to the point where I'm doing that with my your Roger, you're out bow, which would just be wicked, I think. Cause to me, it's going to be a 15 or 20 yard shot max, or I ain't doing it.
Oh, you start following Aaron Schneider and see what that bow's capable of. When you want to go stump shooting, I'm going to bring you to one of my whitetail spots and you can eyeball it for me.
Okay. And I'm not joking. We will get together down the road. Again, I put a ton of time into my boys, ton of time into my family and my whitetails. I just need a little more time down the road to devote to that practice.
Oh, heck yeah. No, good stuff.
And I do love shooting my bow. Don't get me wrong. I shoot it. I shoot it quite a bit. I have a thing about these old bucks. I've spent so much time with them that when I get the one chance to kill them, I literally it's ingrained in me now to where got to make a perfect shot. Not got to, I'm going to. And I don't stress over it, but it's like serious business. So I'm not there yet with a stickbow. You know what I mean?
I tried to say it earlier and I stumbled a little bit, but I mean, your ethics are what I think everybody wishes, all hardcore bow hunters wish everybody had, no matter the weapon in your hand, those kind of ethics. That's solid stuff, man. That's awesome. That's why we're cut from the same mold, no matter the tool we have in our hand.
I don't understand how anybody could think any differently if you respect animals as much as most of us hunters do, and unless you don't respect the animals, and that's what I see with slob type hunting, and it, there's slob type people everywhere. They just don't have any respect for stuff, period. Well, to me, I respect a wild animal, an elk or a bear or an old buck or an old doe or an old cow. I have a ton of respect for that animal for making it so many years with what they deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's evident by the time that we've all put in through the years to enhance habitat. And, we just care. We care to pass it on. So good stuff, man.
Absolutely, Rob.
Good stuff. Great reconnecting with you, bro.
Really cool to talk to you, Rob. You've always been one of my favorite guys. Even though we don't get to talk a lot, I've always enjoyed our time together when we see each other.
Sounds good, bud. Appreciate your time, man.
All righty. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Hey, now we'll be in touch.
Okay. Sounds good.